Welcome everyone to another episode of Talk IES, where this time we're speaking about leadership search solutions during the pandemic. I'm very excited to be speaking with Edward Clark, Executive Director at LSC Education. Hi Edward, how are you?
Very well, Richard. How are you? I'm all good, thanks.
Yeah, good here, thanks. All here well in Bangkok. So thank you for giving up some of your time to speak with us today. How have you been during the lockdown and the pandemic in the UK?
Surprisingly well. It's all been a bit bizarre, as you can imagine. I think it's been interesting. The biggest topic of conversation here probably has been communication in the UK. If you distilled it all down to something, that's because I think a lot of people would say that they don't know what's happening, what they are allowed to do, what they're not allowed to do, and I think that's taught me a lot actually going forward. But that's key. Confusion, I think you put it down to.
So before we get into the questions, Edward, can you just tell our audience a little bit about yourself and some of the work that you and LSC Education does with international schools?
Yes, certainly. So I formed LSC Education. I formed 6 years ago, having been in leadership recruitment for the last 15, 16 years, and prior to that in school leadership myself. We focus purely on leadership recruitment, search and selection, and purely on the education sector, and predominantly international education for a whole range of different schools and education organisations, because, well, the sector is wonderful and it is growing so hugely over the last decade or so. We've got a brilliant team of people who are specialists in education, specialists in recruitment, but also have been heads, school governors, education consultants. So we bring that support to the schools we work with, to advise, not to tell what to do. Worked with hundreds of schools now, all around the world, helping them to recruit to senior leadership posts, and it's our passion for education that drives us.
Brilliant. How have you and your colleagues at LSC found international schools have had to change their recruitment processes over the pandemic period, and how has this affected their success in recruiting?
Well, I think one thing we've really realised is that, or just had to realise very quickly, is that the world is changing, and that we have to adapt with it. And whether or not people like change, we haven't seen anything quite so fast, I don't think, as we have in the last 4 months, about just how things can change quickly. We've been talking for years about how working online using devices is really important, and there's always that question in interviews about, what do you think about children using devices? Well, now I think a good question to adults would be, how could you possibly live without them? So, it's changed the dynamics completely. People have really realised that life now is going to be more online and remote. And actually, it's not just a case of choice. It's a case of, I think, desire in many ways, because we're seeing far less planes in the air and people going far fewer places. And actually, there'll be many good advantages of that. I'm sure we all realise with climate change. And therefore, maybe we should make better use of things being more online and remote. I think we've realised that there is a real benefit for schools in their recruitment of getting better organised and planning and starting their recruitment processes early. To refer back to schools, one of the things that I've really noticed, and when I'm speaking to leaders, is that schools that were prepared for online learning, or at least a little bit prepared for online learning, have coped a lot better than those that weren't. And I think that will reflect on all processes in schools from now on, and certainly it does with the recruitment, that getting organised, planning and starting early and being prepared is the way to go forward. With recruitment, you need to allow plenty of time for the process. You can't leap in at the last minute and try, well, you can, but you won't get the best result. And so schools and boards, we really believe, need to put that time into considering their leadership needs, giving themselves time to attract a strong field of applicants, time to really thoroughly assess and interview and research their candidates thoroughly. If you can't meet people in person as easily as you could in the past, you've got to find other ways to get to know them remotely. There is going to be the challenge for candidates and schools of not being able to, for candidates not being able to visit schools internationally so easily. I think the benefit for them of using recruiters such as us and other recruiters is that we get to know clients and candidates very well, and we act as, in many respects, a good conduit for information and guidance throughout the process. I know that at the moment processes, because of the delays that happen because of the pandemic and travel, there's a lot of confusion and uncertainty amongst candidates as to what's happening, what's going on. And a lot of our schools are sort of, recognizing that they're hoping the candidates will wait and just be prepared to be a bit patient. And that's where you need somebody in the middle saying to everyone, giving the information, communicating what's going on, keeping everyone calm and happy and motivated. There are, despite what people may feel, some advantages to a remote process. May not be what everyone wants, but there are good points about it. One I found is the focus on more research about a person,
right?
Because if you can't meet them in person straight away, it gives you more incentive to do more research about their background, about their successes, about their experiences, research about schools they've worked at, and a lot of that is readily available information if you want to research it. There's also no limit to how much you can communicate with people, and I think that this is really important to that schools need to recognise and boards need to recognise that, as well as the formal communication of interviews, there are plenty of opportunities to communicate by email, text message, WeChat, WhatsApp, whatever, with candidates that develop that relationship that really helps. And in doing that formal and informal communication gives you a better insight into a person and develops those relationships that will help to inform your decision later. You can speak with more people about the candidates rather than just relying on a few references as part of the safeguarding process. Make much better use of them as far as really getting to know people and speaking to people they've worked with previously, they're working with now, because they're the people that really know what the candidate is like. And there are also lots of online tools and processes and assessments, personality profile assessments that you can use to understand people's values and behaviours. So I would just sum up, our recruitment processes haven't changed hugely. We've worked hard at helping candidates and clients get to know each other better. Understand that remote recruitment is the way it might be. It's all about communication. It's all about making people talk to each other as much as possible. And we haven't seen a real negative impact on the success in recruiting during this pandemic because of that.
Yeah, thanks for that. And learned from schools during this pandemic period that might change the way that we recruit school leaders post COVID-19, when all this is over? I mean, what do you think is going to be different?
Yeah, when all this is over. Tell me when that's going to be. Flexibility is a major factor, I think. For everything we do going forward, we need to be more adaptable and flexible, more open to change, more accepting of the fact that change happens and we have to go with it. To realise that the world needs to keep on moving. I remember several months ago, or many months ago, when this all started, that everyone was sort of saying, we'll get it started when this is all over in April or in May. We now realise that you can't just wait and you can't just assume that things are going to get back to normal. So in future, it's about being adaptable and realising that you've just got to get on with it and you just got to make the best that you can. And to have a more creative approach in the future, try to find more innovative ways of doing things. We've watched our teachers and our children adapt to this and learn a new way of doing things very, very quickly, a new way of learning, of teaching, of keeping motivated and organised during these periods of lockdown. So there's no reason to think that we can't do this with any other process in a school, including recruitment. It's just got to motivate us to get on with it, really. The pandemic, I think, has given us a massive example as far as understanding people better in future. it's given us a huge example of crisis management and of change management. And we've all asked in interviews, tell us about a time you've had to manage change or had to lead through a crisis or anything. We've seen how the world adapts to uncertainty and change. We've all seen how countries have responded to each other, how people have responded to each other, how people have handled bad news, and how people have kept also positive and motivated. We've seen good examples, or very clear examples, of where a blame culture has developed, and also people who don't blame, who say this is where it is and let's move on and let's be sensible and think of solutions and work together. We've seen amazing examples, especially on forums like LinkedIn, where people have explained how they've dealt with things, what their schools have done. And that'll give us a great case study and a great interview question in the future. How did you act as a leader through this? How did your school act through this? So, it could help in the future to really reflect on what they were like as leaders. So as recruiters, it's all about us learning to understand people in different ways, and hopefully make us for the future be more open-minded, perceptive and inquisitive about people and their styles and values and behaviours. I think this pandemic period has really shown that what people want to have is to be communicated with, to have certainty and to have stability. So I think going forward, being decisive is really important in giving people momentum in a process and providing them with a level of certainty and stability.
And do you think that school leaders are being more cautious or reluctant to make an international move at this time? And how do you think it will affect people's career progression?
I don't think at all in many aspects, in many respects. I think that most candidates, I know that most candidates we speak to are globally minded, adventurous people who are cautious risk takers, who are open to new opportunities, and who don't see borders as barriers. When you talk to people about what countries they would like to go and lead or teach in, most international leaders don't see a border as an issue. Other things are on their mind. And I think most international leaders know why they're in education, and they're there for the children, and they're there for a passion for education. Therefore, I think, and all the evidence I've seen, is that they'll continue to move and to work in schools wherever they're needed, wherever that may be globally. I don't think it'll stop people moving. There are obviously going to be challenges for a while, that it could affect that will affect people's travelling due to quarantine periods and other such situations. And this is going to affect job applications and successful career moves in some respects. But what I think schools need to do is to be open-minded and to be reasonable when interviewing, so that they don't lose candidates for the sake of process. And I've tried to recommend to many of my clients that it's the old English expression, don't cut your nose off to spite your face. Just because someone can't fly to see you at the moment, don't lose them just because of that. Find other ways to do things. For career progression, even during these times, I think people need to keep moving forward. They know they need to keep moving forward, whether that's moving up in their career to a new job, or whether that's developing themselves in their current role to be a better leader. It's not all about moving up into a new job. And I believe really strongly in that. And that's why at LSC we've developed our coaching service as well as recruitment, and why we currently coach a lot of people, not just to improve, or not just to move on to their next job, but also to how to improve in their current job and to become a better leader. So yeah, we've continued to see just as many people apply for jobs throughout the pandemic, which clearly indicates that they're not letting the situation limit their growth and development, and they are moving ahead, which is great.
Thank you. We're very lucky to be in this international sector. I think it's proven in the past to be very resilient. I was during SARS and the global slowdown, and the industry, international school industry rather, bounced back stronger than ever. I think parents still want their children to go to Western universities. So it's, we've got our challenges with aviation, which we're all aware of, and people flying around the world. But no, I feel very grateful to be in this sector, and I think all will be well. I must thank you, Edward, for your time. It's been great speaking to you, and some really great advice for our schools there. And hope you stay safe and well in London. I don't know when I'll see you face to face, but I think it might be a while before we're getting on an airplane and going to a conference, right?
Well, it may be, but maybe that's an opportunity to look at new ways of doing things in that respect. But yeah, we'll all come back together, as one famous lady said, we'll meet again. And and as my friend and colleague Helen Wright, who you know well, always says, her expression, onwards and upwards. And that's what I think we and schools and children all need to do, recognize that this mustn't let us stop us.
Well, yeah, good to see you, and again, thanks for your time. And
pleasure. Thanks very much.
Yeah, we'll speak to you again soon. All right.
That's great. Thanks, Richard.
Bye for now.